All right. Welcome into the Your Illini Nation pregame show live from the Kohl Center here in Madison, Wisconsin. Andy Olson from WCIA here with you, along with Derek Piper from Illini Inquirer as we get you set for this 2 o'clock tip, a nice afternoon game, Derek. It was an interesting ride up here with a little bit of weather. I don't think they're getting much in Champaign or maybe wherever you have to be watching this. I think north of maybe Bloomington is about where the weather started, but we're inside now. It's warm in here, even though it's cold outside in the Wisconsin winter. And Derek, we got a fun matchup, the first rematch of the season for the Illini in Game 10 of the Big Ten season. We are at the halfway point for conference play. And this Illini team, we are still wondering kind of exactly what they are at this point in the year.
Yeah, for sure. It is good to see that they put together 5 wins in the last 6 and a chance to continue to build on that. Anytime you go on the road, and this has been one of the tougher venues in the Big Ten to be able to pull out a road win, but to Illinois' credit, they've flipped the streak here in this series. Wisconsin had won 15 in a row. Now Illinois is building theirs up to 5 in a row in the series, 2 in a row here in this building, a chance to get a quad 1 win and continue to create a little bit of separation from that middle of the pack there where things can get really congested there in the Big Ten standings. So a game where 2 teams trending in opposite directions. Wisconsin's dropped 5 of their last 6. They feel like they need a win, and they're squarely now on the NCAA tournament bubble. Looking at Joe Lunardi's ESPN bracketology, they're currently the last team that he has in the field. So they could really use a win here. It is kind of a toss-up game, obviously, because it could be really tough. You look at this spread, I think it opened around Illinois -1. I think they're -2.5 right now, but it's kind of that interesting push and pull of, teams at home that need one usually find a way to get one done. But I do think, as we'll break down, Illinois is a bad matchup for Wisconsin, especially Terrence Shannon. His athleticism, his strength, really was able to get going against the Badgers in the first game. One difference, of course, Tyler Wall available for Wisconsin in this one, which was different than when we saw them in Champaign a few weeks ago.
Yeah. These teams have been on divergent paths since these 2 teams played a few weeks ago in Champaign. Illinois has won 5 of their last 6. Wisconsin, losers of 5 of their last 6. Their 1 win coming against, I believe that was Penn State
here
by 3 points only. So Wisconsin has had a tough go of it. Tyler Wall has come back in the last few games. He was out for that stretch, like you mentioned. He is firmly back in the starting lineup now. But Wisconsin also dealing with a little bit of the fatigue that Illinois had been dealing with before their big break over this past weekend. This is now their 3rd game in their last 6 days. Derek, I imagine that's probably going to play a factor into this one.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Northwestern, with their COVID pause, had to reschedule that game and play it on Monday, and then a quick turnaround for Wisconsin to go on the road and play at Maryland. So it played back-to-back road games, obviously having to do the East Coast swing, and now play their 3rd game in 6 days. You do wonder about the fatigue for a team that hasn't been 100%. While Wall has come back and played the last 3 games, Max Klessman, a starter, is transferred from Wofford, has missed the last 2 games with a jaw injury that took a shot to the jaw. I know they had to get stitches in his mouth. He's expected back here today, but they have been playing at less than 100%. I do think that when you have that kind of desperation, you're going to get your home crowd involved. I would imagine they give an inspired effort today, but that is something that Wisconsin's having to battle against. Illinois is better rested, having played Tuesday, some time off since that Ohio State win. So Illinois should be the fresher team, and we'll see if that is a factor, especially, again, we kind of keep coming back to it. Will this finally be a close game for Illinois? They haven't played any of those here recently. They've won convincingly or they've gotten blown out. If it is one of those grinded out to the very end, will Illinois be able to outlast a Wisconsin team that is maybe playing on tired legs, especially late in the game?
Let's talk about the starting lineup and the most recent game for the Illini. You mentioned that game against Ohio State, one that they had in hand for seemingly the entire game. And one of the differences in that game was Jaden Epps gets inserted into the starting lineup instead of Sincere Harris. Brad Underwood saying after the game he just wanted to see what that would be like. He knows Jaden brings something a little bit different that defenses have to account for than Sincere. And Derek, I ask you, are we going to see the same starting lineup in this one?
Yeah, I don't expect so. I think it is handing the keys off to Jaden Epps to say, okay, you're our point guard of the future. We like the way that you've really been progressing the last month and a half. And I think that Jaden's very confident and comfortable at this point. He's battle tested. He's played against Chucky Hepburn back in Champaign, who he'll see today in this matchup. So, and Jaden being able to get in the lane and break down a defense, be able to score around the rim. We know that he can hit shots from the perimeter as well, and he is just more of an offensive threat than Sincere Harris is. So I think it is putting your best 5 on the floor at the same time to start a game. Of course, then it takes a little bit of the offensive punch that you get off the bench, although RJ Melendez, with the way that you hope that he starts to build some momentum here. I know he had a encouraging sign, scored some buckets late in the Indiana game, but then missed shots again against Ohio State. So you hope that he can start to get going. But I do think it is just instilling even more confidence in Jaden Epps, and he talked about it yesterday being something that he's earned as far as his starting role, and he's definitely deserved that. So it's been good to see the way that Jaden has been a steadying influence for this team. He's been a guy that is pretty consistent in double figures, and I just like the way that he's trending, and I don't think he's going to be rattled by an environment like this or a challenge against Wisconsin.
I mentioned off the top that this now marks the midway point of the Big Ten season. Illinois 5-4 right now. On the 3-1 podcast, Brett Behrens asked me if I think that Illinois can get to that 12-win mark this year. It kind of seems like so many teams are bunched up in the middle. You don't know what will get you that double bye to Friday in the Big Ten tournament. I feel like that's maybe where Illinois needs to set their goal for the remainder of this season, get that double bye. Will 12 wins be enough? Maybe in this year's Big Ten. And I feel like this game at Wisconsin, rematch game, kind of helps with maybe some momentum as you go into a tougher part of the schedule. Is going to be a big decider, and if that's going to be possible for the Illini this year.
Definitely. Look at this weekend against Wisconsin on the road, and the next weekend at Iowa. Two real chances to stack up wins that would be toss-up games, hard ones to get on the road. If they are able to start building those home wins, which now that you've played some of these tougher games in January at home against Wisconsin, Michigan State, Ohio State, Indiana, you got Nebraska coming up next week. Some of your home games going forward aren't as challenging. So if you're able to win a game like this on the road, I do think, Ken Pom has projected them around 11-9 in the league through the last week or so. I think that 12 wins would get you to a top 3 or top 4 finish in the league. Purdue, obviously, right now might hit 12, 13 wins by early February with the way that they're rolling right now. Rutgers has been really solid, obviously a team that you expect to take care of business at home, and they're sitting there in that solid 2-hole in the Big Ten standings. I do feel like Indiana can get hot and really climb up that ranking list here over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see if they can hit that 11 or 12 win mark after a slow start. But I think that's what it would take to get that double bye. I think setting that over-under kind of at 11.5 wins for Illinois right now would probably be where you put the mark if you're trying to take bets on it. Yeah. But like you said, a game like this, and then also a game like Iowa, could really be the difference in whether Illinois can get 11-plus wins. And if you think about a top 3 finish in the Big Ten, it's probably a good seed in the NCAA tournament, and obviously setting yourself up to be in a good position when you go to Chicago for the Big Ten tournament.
After the 0-3 start, let's say they get the win today here in Madison. 6-4 after 10 games halfway through the Big Ten season. That's not a bad rebound from where they started.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you go from 0-3 to 6-4 and feel like you got momentum riding into the late January into February, it's kind of, we've said it over and over again here recently at least, that it's kind of the Brad Underwood trend. It's what he's done each and every year, is get his team on a heater there in January as you progress through that Big Ten schedule. So that would be a great spot to be in. Come back home, play Nebraska in a very winnable game. So that would be something that could really be a encouraging sign of consistency, and that you're for sure undoubtedly going in the right direction, that you're not worried about being on the NCAA tournament bubble, that you're not worried about anything as far as being in a bad spot and having to climb your way out of it there in February. So I think you look at them right now, a projected 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. Obviously we still have a lot of basketball left to play, but a win here on the road and a sweep of Wisconsin would put you in a very good spot going forward.
The basketball just did a trick shot while you were talking there. Went up the seats behind the camera and then through the tripod legs. That was fun. Well, I thought I was going to have to dive after the camera there, but that's what happens on the pregame show courtside here. Derek, as we look ahead to the second half of the Big Ten slate now, we talked about what would be positive for them if all things go right, getting to that 12-win mark. If things go bad, do you think the team has showed this year, I don't want to say consistency, because clearly they have not showed consistency yet, but enough resolve to bounce back and maybe still get to that 500, 10-10 mark and you know, sneak into the NCAA tournament still?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely talented enough to be able to right the ship. I think their identity, both at the defensive end, which they've been really, really good at here recently, outside of the Indiana game where obviously Trace let them up inside, but a team that can really limit you from three. They're showing their length, athleticism, how that can affect shots around the paint, being able to have a high block rate. We know that Coleman Hawkins, Dane Danger, Matthew Meyer, all guys that can really contest shots around the rim. And offensively, to be able to rely on Shannon and Meyer, I mean, both guys have been very consistent here of late. Meyer, especially over the last 10 to 12 games, has been someone that's in double figures just about every night, and especially around that 15-point per game range. Now that Epps is getting a lot more comfortable, I think Coleman is a big X factor. If Coleman can build consistency, that can take this team to another level. Epps had a really good game defending Bryce Sensabaugh against Ohio State, and obviously adding a nice offensive punch as well with his 11 points, six assists, and only 1 turnover. So I don't question the chemistry part. Of course, it's easier to like each other, to feel good about your team bonding when you're winning games, as they've done here of late. But I think they're in better position to handle maybe a loss or 2 in a row and be able to bounce back than we would have expected there in December or early January.
All right, well, let's talk about the matchup now as we kind of start to wrap things up. What is your eye going to be drawn to this afternoon? And what are maybe some keys to the game for the Illini if they want to come out with a win?
First and foremost, going to be looking at the matchup between Tyler Wall and Coleman Hawkins.
Yep.
Tyler Wall is an all-league caliber player, a guy that was projected second team All-Big Ten going into the year, someone that is really, really skilled in the post. He's got great footwork, great moves, can play on the perimeter, handle the ball. I know that Brad mentioned also is a guy that might look to push it in transition a little bit. So Coleman be able to handle that matchup. Matthew Meyer will probably draw that assignment a little bit as well. So making sure that he doesn't hurt you on back downs in the post, that you're really disciplined and don't bite on his head fakes, his shot fakes to get you in the air, put fouls on you. So if you can be able to limit him, a guy that's Wisconsin's leading scorer, that can really make things tough on Wisconsin. They can go through some offensive droughts, especially when Tyler's not able to get going. So if Coleman can dial in, we know that when he's at his best, he can be one of the best defenders there in the Big Ten. We saw it last year against Keegan Murray. Again, we saw it against Ohio State as well. That's one thing I'll be looking for. Of course, Coleman at the other side hit 6 threes against Wisconsin in the last meeting. Wisconsin's going to be looking for Wall to kind of help contain Coleman a little bit better here today. So Coleman's performance is one thing I'll be looking for. Of course, Epps against Chucky Hepburn. Chucky started to bully ball him a little bit in that second half in Champaign. Maybe he'll try to do that a little bit earlier in this game, kind of see how Jaden handles that. And then Wisconsin, it's kind of year in, year out. You look at their home road splits, they always shoot the three so much better in this building. They were ice cold for most of the day there in Champaign, like 3 for 21 through the middle of the second half from 3 in that game. Here in this building, they shot 43% from 3. So if Illinois can hold them down from 3, which they've done to opponents here recently, I think that bodes well for Illinois to not feel like they're playing catch up for a Badger squad that can get hot from 3 in this arena.
All right, let's talk predictions now. And before we do that, mind you, Illinois wearing the blues today.
Yeah.
I don't know if you call these the alternates, the road alts, whatever you call them. Illinois hasn't worn them in 2 years. As far as I can remember, didn't wear them last year. I believe the last time they've worn the blues was at Rutgers all the way back in 2021. But there is some significance. What is the record in the blues? 2-20, I think.
2-20.
But they did break the Cole streak in those blues back here in 2020, I believe.
That's right. Early 2020, I would assume who hit the big shot on the pull-up step back. And I know that another win, Joey and I, this is the research that you count on that really matters here, the hard-hitting stuff.
That's right.
Their other win in the road blues was 2019 at Ohio State, another late game shot, Mariah Dosumu. So yeah, doing the throwback to the breaking of the streak where Wisconsin had won 15 in a row. You get a win on this home floor, or this floor here at the Kohl Center, which again has been one of the tougher places to get a win in the league for the last 2 decades. So understand the significance. It hasn't been a uniform that's been all that good to Illinois during Brad Underwood's tenure, but it's not a bad look, and we'll see if they can keep it going here today.
Well, let's see who's going to be brave enough to predict maybe a win in the blues. What would that percentage be? 0.1% chance, or sorry, 0.1 in the percentage winning
They've
record.
won about 10% of their games, maybe.
Not great,
Yeah.
but we'll see. Derek, you favor them in the Blues?
It's a tough one. Again, I keep thinking in my mind about teams that need one at home, and we've seen it throughout. I mean, Illinois was really in that position when Wisconsin came to town earlier this month, where they had lost 3 straight high major games, all by double digits. A lot of talk about where's this season going for Illinois. Obviously, they were able to get a win. That conversation's kind of stirring up here in Madison about whether this thing's going to go south, they're going to finish towards the bottom of the league, whether they're going to be having to worry about NCAA tournament berth as you push towards March. But all that being said, I think Shannon's too much for this Wisconsin team. I do think it's a close game, but I think it's one that Illinois pulls out late. We're finally going to see a close one-possession game.
Wow.
68-65 Illinois today in Madison.
How are we so good at getting these scores so close? You posted beforehand, but I swear, I don't look at your score. I think similarly. I think the fatigue is going to set in for Wisconsin. Even if they do perform up to their standards here at the Kohl Center, I do think 3 games in 6 days is a lot, and Illinois is much better rested than them. So I'm going to do also a close game, not one possession. I'm going to say 68-63. So I'll do 64, just so you have above 65 for Wisconsin. I have below 65. I'll go 64.
Okay.
We each see an Illinois win, which is a brave pick considering the record in the Blues. But I do think that Illinois has enough in this one. We'll find out on the court how exactly it'll play out. Derek, we are, I don't have the time up there, about an hour away from tip-off. I usually have the exact time. We'll just go about an hour. How can fans at home spend their time getting ready for the game on Illini Inquirer?
I got my 3 keys in the pick to break down the full matchup, scouting report for Wisconsin, my prediction as I laid out there. And then also, I know Joey Wagner did a feature on Jaden Epps, spoke to the media yesterday about coming into that starting role, what that means for him, and what he wants to do to take his game even further going forward. So, and I also, last night I was at Bloomington Central Catholic catching up with Cole Serta, who has an Illini offer, got that earlier this month, and I spoke to him after his 34-point outing against St. Thomas More. So check all that out at Illini Inquirer. We'll have post-game coverage as well.
All right, and then after the game, wherever you're watching this right now, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, WCIA.com, you can watch Brad Underwood's full post-game press conference, hear from him. Win or loss, usually they're pretty fiery comments and usually a bit of fun. So tune in later for that, as well as tune in tonight at 10 o'clock. No early shows on WCIA for my game story from here at the Kohl Center, plus highlights from the game as well. And of course, the WCIA 3-in-1 podcast as well. It's been fun. This is my first time at the Kohl Center, so nice to take it in a bit. Nice to know that Illinois has able to get rid of most of those demons that surround this place. Maybe fans still have that bad taste in their mouth, because 15 in a row, it's quite a bit.
They got to be getting sick of it.
We're getting sick of it for sure. And I'm sure the Illini fans would love to see us streak in the opposite direction. Keep going. For Derek, I'm Andy. Thanks so much for joining us on the pregame show. Again, join us afterwards for the postgame press conference and on WCIA 3. No matter what, though, enjoy the game.